Welcome, Pedro. It is a real pleasure to be speaking with you and to have you joining us for the Música y Ritmos performance at the Nimbus Arts Center. As a little bit of background to the Música y Ritmos series, what we wanted to do with this music series, which was supported by a grant from the Hudson County Office of Cultural Affairs, was to not only present fantastic musicians that are working in Latin American musical traditions, but also think about the ways that music has played a role in Jersey City and Hudson County for Latin American groups over the years. And so, but I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what brought you to Jersey City, both musically or personally. How did you end up in Jersey City?
Cool. Well, first of all, let me say that we are also very, very excited to be part of this, event, to be, the first band to play live there at the wonderful Nimbus Arts Center. So thank you so much for the invite. And I really cannot wait to share the music with the audience. I found Jersey City to be my home a little bit by coincidence, but I was living in Brooklyn, and then we found this beautiful apartment in Jersey City. And back then, it was just my wife and I. And the minute we landed, we fell in love with how everything was so like lively and moving and changing, the community, and we have been part of Jersey City and since then, and always loving what's happening here. I don't know, everything feels very effervescent, changing, and there are so many people doing new things. There is not one time that I visit downtown that I feel there are like two new stores, and it's really beautiful to feel part of something that is moving so much, and that as an artist is very inspiring. I'm sure all of you know that Jersey City hosts a lot of musicians and performers, and it's that kind of scenery and environment inspires us a lot.
Yeah. Jersey City more and more, I think, is seen as being part of the greater New York City region, which, of course, has for a long time been a real magnet internationally for drawing artists of all types of genres. Could you talk? Now you're originally from Argentina, and you came to New York. Tell us a little bit about what drew you to the New York area originally, and what influences you found here musically that have impacted your work and sent you on a trajectory that maybe was what you expected, but maybe introduced you to new directions in your work.
Well, pretty much, all of the above happened. But my journey started in Argentina, as you mentioned. I am actually from Córdoba, Argentina, and I came to the U.S. I think it was March 1996 to audition. I took a plane, got off in Florida, Miami. Went to audition. The campus all green and perfect. Like everything summery, perfect weather. Loved it, and then I took a plane and landed in New York. Got immediately on the A train, and then saw subway, rats, gloomy people at 6 a.m. and I fell in love with the city immediately. It was like, for me, love at first sight. There was something about the energy that just captivated me, and I was really praying that I would get into the school in New York rather than the one in Florida, and I did. So I came here to study jazz. In Argentina, I was focusing a lot of in that, true American musical culture of, jazz. And that's what I did for 6 years or 7 years, actually. I did both my undergraduate and my master's degree here. But New York, as you mentioned, is a true magnet of talents of all kinds. And immediately I started to realize that, jazz was, certainly, something very important in my life. But there was this whole really wide world of different traditions, all kinds of music from all over the world. In New York, played at a very, very high level, and very inspiring. So I started, I don't know, as a youngster, going into 8th Street to eat, Indian food while hearing really outstanding Indian musicians, listening to tons of Cuban bands. I mean, you name it, Brazil. I remember going to the Think Bar when it was on Houston, listening to the rhythm section who recorded all the Elis Regina albums. I mean, whatever style of music you want to think of, New York, has that kind of, or the New York area, I should say, has that, top notch. So it was very inspiring. And I started to notice that, I was interested in all these other things. And, as important as jazz is in my life, I kind of expanded my range of interest, and which also, of course, affected me as a musician, both as a performer and a composer.
But last question for you. A lot of musical traditions have their roots in bringing people together to dance, to socialize. And I know that the tango music tradition, of course, is very connected to a dance tradition of its own, as are many of the Latin American musical traditions. But so can you tell us a little bit about, how would you like audiences to respond to your music? Your music is very finely composed and beautifully performed, so it's an experience in and of itself for audiences just to listen, and yet it's also music that makes you want to move. What is your preferred way that audiences should I really appreciate your music?
Well, you bring out something. You bring up something very important, which is the very deep connection between the dance and the music in tango, and that, funnily enough, touches a sometimes touchy topic, between the dancers and the musicians. Which, I mean, if you talk to any tango dancer or musician, it's there, and it's the topic about the danceability of the music. So in my case, what I've done is that I have different repertoires for different situations. So if I know that I'm playing for people to dance, then I have a certain repertoire, and maybe we accent more traditional pieces, tangos from the 40s and 30s and 20s and so on. And if I feel that I'm playing for more adventurous dancers, or maybe a setting that allows for both. I'm thinking right now, we used to have a residency at the Django, which is this kind of like jazz club, but there's a tiny dance floor. Then I would do kind of a mix, and I will kind of feel the room and see, what's happening. And if I don't know, suddenly 9 people start dancing, then, I'll change the repertoire. And then we have our kind of more the concert repertoire, with is pretty much made out of mainly original pieces and pieces by Astor Piazzolla, which in most cases are not very danceable.
Great. Well, thank you again, Pedro. It's a pleasure to have you at the Nimbus Arts Center, and we're looking forward to not just the continuation of tonight's performance, but also future collaborations. So,
of course, sir. Well, looking forward.
Great.